Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how you know you're alive.
Yeah, I think that's a.
Long as your chair is squeaking. Okay. 2 minutes. According to Second Life, anyway.
Yep, the Second Life clock is good. Solid. Okay, checking.
Just noting, if it gets too hot, I may have to take my trousers off in real life.
That's a little bit too much information, but do please announce it publicly on the stream. I think that the YouTube algorithm test the YouTube algorithm if it detects that as inappropriate and blocks that particular stream.
Oh, I have dressed for this meeting, even though it's not video. So I have my Sacramento Northern Railway shirt on, even. So
Wow. Oh, cool.
Well, we have to wear clothes
I'm
for
a
this.
member of the California. What is it? The California Western Railway Museum. So
Where is that?
it's near Fairfield, up in kind of near Sacramento, California, more or less. It's mostly a trolley museum. They have 9 miles of old trolley line that they've been hanging the poles for, and they run mostly trolley cars.
Wow.
They have a large collection of trolley cars. So,
ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
oh yes,
I was ready when I was born.
I was ready.
Ready?
In that case, Strawberry, I'll give you 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We're on.
Hello there, and welcome to a special Made in SL SL17B show right here from the Second Life birthday party on June the 23rd. Happy birthday, Second Life. My name is Draxtor Despres, and this hour we will be talking about railroads made in SL. We just released a 5-part series that I and several people have been working on for a while. Railroads Made in SL. It's part of the Made in SL series on the official Second Life YouTube channel and all the other Second Life channels. And I am exceptionally pleased and excited to welcome an illustrious panel here on stage. And I'm looking at the stage, so I'm going. I never know if it's stage left or stage right if I'm looking at myself, but we'll find that out. So if I'm looking at myself, I'm starting to introduce people from the left. Hrdtop75 Deluxe is here. He is the secretary at the Virtual Railway Consortium and also the voiceover and the researcher for the Railroads Made in SL series. Hello, Hrdtop.
Hello, how's it going?
And Hardtop is, of course, in Australia, where I don't know what time it is. It's the middle of the night, and Hardtop showed up, and he set his clock, and that's awesome, Hardtop. Are you? I mean, did you drink a gallon of coffee, or do you start straight with beer in the morning?
Oh, no, straight with beer. No, obviously coffee. No, 5 a.m. over here at the moment, so yeah, she's nice and cold as well.
No worries, folks. We're going to be talking about railroads and not about beer. Next to Hardtop is Zen-Swords Galway. Zen-Swords Galway runs his own private railway, the ZZR, which is part of the series in part 4. We'll dive into it. Zen, hello, and thanks for coming. How are you?
Hello there. I'm good, thanks. A little nervous, but only could be expected.
Zen, no need to be nervous. We were just talking about offline. You are exceptionally dressed up in top-notch bento mesh, whatever it is called, gear, and all these other people who look like they came straight from. Okay, let's not get into that. It's not about who is best dressed here. We're talking about railroads. Then on the other side of myself is Patch Linden. Patch Linden should be known to folks as the head of the governance team, vice president of product. Did I get your titles right, Patch?
Well, yeah, it's the vice president of product operations for Second Life.
Product operations. Okay, operations. So you're out there with the hammering actually on the rails and stuff like that. You're not just sitting in some sort of office. You're actually like a hands-on kind of guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then this is absolutely exciting because Athos Murphy is sitting right next to Patch, and Athos Murphy is a huge part in this series. He's talked about all the time in all 5 episodes, I believe. Maybe not episode 4, but Athos Murphy was at one time the head of the Linden Department of Public Works. Athos Murphy, I don't know, can I reveal your Linden name, or do you think it's a complete secret that should never be revealed? It's up to you.
Oh, go ahead. I often told people who I was.
I actually assumed that everybody knows who Athos Murphy was. He was, of course, Michael Linden. And Michael, let's start with you, and then we go the round backwards. Michael, you were instrumental in, and we see this in the series. By the way, maybe somebody can put the playlist in the local chat here in SL. Actually, I have it right here. This is the playlist of the series. Athos, when you started with the Great Second Life Railway, what was your initial? Did you have a railroading background, an enthusiast background when you came into SL? Because you guys, you and some others, and please mention those names, started a project at a time when there was no way to travel in Second Life other than paying at these info hubs. And you guys started the Second Life Railway.
Oh well, it was the railway track was initially laid for the Second Life Railway by, I think it was Eric Linden, who was one of the world makers at the time. But I had joined Second Life, before that in 2003. But I'd been doing, as Athos Murphy, I'd been making airplanes and railways and things. My own interest is in actual railways and model railways and things like that. And I had joined Second Life Linden Lab as a liaison, which had nothing to do with content creation. But I had been making railways already, the Great Second Life Railway, in various places. And I was able to sort of convince or beguile Eric Linden and his cohort into setting aside places for rail line. And they started building the first track on what is now the Second Life Railway.
But this is what fascinates me, because when we started the series with Hardtop, and we go into briefly into the origin with the Great Second Life Railway. What was interesting, it's not we didn't go deep into it in the series, but did you have a lot of convincing to do in the beginning? Because what baffles me as someone who came into Second Life in 2007, like I would have assumed that this was something even in the planning stage. I said, like, guys, we need some sort of a travel thing, and railroads in the physical world that made culture happen and made it initiated cultural growth along the tracks. But obviously that was not the case. So, right? I mean, when you came in, you kind of had some convincing to do.
Oh yeah, I don't think there was much of a here's how you'll get to your next party, use the train. was not a major driver of the creation of the Second Life Railway. They didn't actually get, there's only so many people who were near the tracks after all. And originally there was only about a kilometer or two of track from about where the Hobo Hub is now up into the mountains, I believe, was the first rails. But it was certainly something I appreciated because I'd been spending about a year or so from 2003 building the Great Second Life Railway, which is a private railway, not part of Linden Lab, and organizing terrain, buying parcels, long, skinny parcels, is a gigantic difficulty. And in some ways, the hardest part of building a railway in Second Life is obtaining the land for it. And persuading, once I was with Lab, persuading Eric Linden and the Lab that, no, you should set aside some of these areas that were originally, I believe, set aside as roadway. They were just, terrain that was owned by Linden Lab in long road-like stretches. And I said, one of those would make a nice railway. And that was where that started from. That took a bit of persuading, though.
This I find actually, I can't get over the fact that somebody or a company or the original founders that wanted to create a world didn't think about public transportation initially as a top priority. Patch, you are featured in the Belisaria episode a little bit, talking about what's going on now. What has changed since the days of Athos Murphy and the Great Second Life Railway? What was interesting is when we spoke, we had already done so much stuff on the mainland. Is it your sense that the railway is being appreciated by the masses, or it's just something like, oh yeah, it's kind of a neat, like, outdated thing that runs through Belisaria or whatever?
No, I think everyone really appreciates it. Over time, the I guess the value proposition behind the existence of the railway in Second Life has potentially changed and maybe even seen a little bit of a renaissance. The really kind of cool thing is that Belisaria is giving us a chance to kind of start over in fresh territory, so that we can experiment with and do new and interesting things with it before we maybe apply our current generation of staff's learning to something backwards, like going and working on the mainland at large. So Belisaria itself, with that railway installation going in, is giving us a lot of opportunity to kind of fine-tune and make some tweaks and changes that we feel like are going to benefit us in the long run when we do decide to go and focus on working on the mainland some more in the future.
This is interesting because in the chat here, Ven is saying, when is the SLRR getting its much needed upgrade? I'm going to throw this to Hrdtop too, because this is what you're hinting at, and I'm kind of outside of all this, except for working on this series. I have no idea what conversations went on or what possible grievances there are about, with mainland residents about the SLRR and such. Moving over to Zen, and by the way, once we made the initial rounds, I want to make sure that everybody knows that you can chime in and talk over me. Please do jump in if you feel you want to say something. Now, Zen, you have a private railway, which is in episode 4, the ZZR. That was really awesome to meet you and see, like, you had this issue that Athos was mentioning, and it's talked about in the episode. You needed to buy abandoned land. So the challenge, if somebody wants to do something that you have done, your own private railway, you need to find some land, and then you need to just buy up the other land. Is there anywhere where you can go now, Zen? I mean, what is your strategy with this to expand your railway?
Well, I'm pretty much boxed in now. Everyone has bought land around the railway. But I definitely
Right,
can.
because and then you go to the water, and that's it, where Little Coverston is.
Oh yeah. I definitely hearing Athos go on about buying the small thin parcels brings back a lot of memories. The stress of trying to get land in a small thin plot. Originally, I had to get 2 5-12 square meter plots together and cut them down to a 4 meter wide plot. What costs so much in the end, but I would love to extend, but I'm just not rich enough anymore. Well, I'm not rich at all.
But you could extend it. You could just go. You would have to go out to the neighbors and just buy all this stuff up. You have to approach them.
I would have to do cute eyes at them.
But just invite them to the pub at Little Coverston and show them the engine shed. I want to say this again, guys. Watch the series after we've done this. If you're not familiar with some of the stuff that Zen is doing and Hrdtop is doing on the mainland, it's just it's amazing, especially Zen working with prims and making all the trains with prims. Okay, Hrdtop. If you had a blank, you were invited to Linden Lab. Let's play this little mind game, Hrdtop, and you get into a private 2-hour meeting with Patch where he says, "I want to know everything that you want done on the mainland right now. What will be the top 3 things to be done to the SLRR on the mainland right now?"
Wow, that's a really good question.
I know. I've hosted enough shows in the middle of the night where I had to get up, and because of the time zone difference, like at 2 in the morning. I guess it's 2 in the morning where you are, or around that time. And then always like people throw questions at me, and I was like, okay, all right then. I just rolled out of bed. But anyway, Hrdtop, take it where you will.
I guess the physical appearance of it is pretty good.
Ah.
I do hear a lot of people talk about how they prefer to have it changed over to the Belisaria. I'll pronounce that wrong for you.
You're Australian, you're off the hook.
I have heard that they'd like to see it all upgraded. I don't know how the rest of the community would go about that. Other than that, I think there was a couple of prims that needed fixing and a couple of switches that need fixing, and that's about it. Down on Hrdtop75 Atoll, that's about it.
Yeah, because people are seeming to, in the chat, I'm just scanning through the chat, people are saying that there needs to be some upgrading, but it sounds to me, Hrdtop, that there doesn't seem to be a lot to be done from you. I mean, you're the secretary.
I'm only a secretary, man. I'm not the owner or anything like that. I basically help out the residents and things like that. People often come to me with questions. Why isn't my train working? And I'll help them through that, or add them to the VRC group. I can do that as well.
But there's not really on the mainland right now. This question goes to everyone, including the audience. There are not really tracks that are completely broken or anything like that, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
No, and usually if we ever get any requests or hear about them, Squeaky's kind of the mole rail master. He's the one who goes out and fixes those things or adds and takes out switches and stuff as they're requested. So anytime we hear about that stuff and it needs to happen, we usually try to jump on it.
Do you get a lot of requests like that? Is there a lot of interest on the mainland? Because this is a question that what I found fascinating with this series and with other stuff that we're doing around the mainland. The mainland is a treasure in my mind, and I know I'm speaking. I mean, a lot of people here in the audience probably agree. And the question is, how can the mainland be made more attractive? And one of the answers is to do activities maybe around the railroad, maybe events around, like, let's hop on a train, or let's do a tour and do that regularly at specific times of the week or the day or whatever, stuff like that. I mean, to me, investigating this and being guided by Hrdtop, it brought back to me the beauty and the madness, and as Hrdtop says in the series, the good, the bad, and the different. Of what SL is and what originally attracted me to SL. A lot of people, I think, have similar stories that they felt initially attracted to Second Life because of the unfinished nature of it, which is so different than what attracts people to, polished games. I mean, I'm painting with a broad brush, but this is based on hundreds of people that I've interviewed over the years, and they always point out that the anything goes aspect visually is something that attracted them and wanted and made them feel, hey, here is something where I can contribute, and here's something where I can actually stay, where I find it interesting because I can shape this world rather than just sort of consume it. Athos, yeah, what would you say to ideas of bringing attraction back to the mainland? And I'm sure some people here in the chat said, well, the mainland is attractive. I'm on the mainland every day. Well, but there is a suburbanization going on in Second Life as well, just like everywhere else in the physical world too.
Well, it would be very difficult to extend. You could put railways in the uninhabited parts of the mainland, but I don't know that people will instantly build their. Actually, let us pretend they would build their new mansions along the new railway track.
Yes, don't you think that would happen? I would think so. I mean, that's what. Yeah.
I'm sure it would bring vast amounts of development, but perhaps I would be wrong. However, the extending my if I were king of Second Life, which I'm not, extending railways through the coming up with a system perhaps without a center guide. Oh, I know, heresy. On as more like trolley track on existing roads, perhaps, because that doesn't call for as much change in terrain. But I'm not king, so I noticed in my notes, by the way, the Second Life Railway started in 2005, which was the same year that telehubs were turned off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not. Well, there was obviously a degree of thinking in the lab about how do people get around, and the answer was let people teleport where they want. They turned off telehubs, let people go. The earliest railway in Second Life was the trolleys in Nova Albion.
Mm-hmm.
Between, was it Dor and somewhere, I can't remember the names of the Nova Albion place, but there's that little.
I took those trolleys. I took those. I was measuring how long it would take me to be accurate in the description, and I ultimately cut it from the film. Yeah.
But the original, I noticed the original people were Eric and Nigel Linden. I think Nigel was doing a lot of the scripting, I believe. I know he scripted the Second Life, the railway car that I think it's still sometimes seen that runs on the SLRR, kind of a silvery looking tube with pointy ends. That was Nigel made that. So I think he was doing scripting for early rail travel.
Patch just put something in the chat that I have no idea what that is about. Please elaborate. WARR land preserved to do something with something at some point. What are you guys talking about here? Secretly?
Somebody in the audience mentioned the WARR, which was the Western Atoll Railroad, and it was a railroad created by a resident. And forgive me, I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. Michael, you might. But they unfortunately couldn't continue with it, and it was a very long, fairly extensive rail network that this resident and their group had set up, and unfortunately we had reacquired the land back to us, and we've been basically kind of holding on to it in the background ever since. One day I would like to do something with it going forward, and that might be one of those opportunities that I alluded to earlier of when we go back to being able to focus on the mainland and the SLRR and the railways there, maybe that's a good kind of clean slate for us to start with something there on the mainland itself.
This is fascinating.
That was
Go ahead,
Hilto
Pam.
Meridoc was the founder of the WARR.
That's right.
Who
Can
was a
somebody put
person
that
from-
in the chat, that name, please?
Sure. One
Put
moment.
that in chat.
Okay. Chat.
I believe
And-
they were going into financial difficulty with the there was something happening in Japan at that time. Money was going down the drain.
Hardtop, turn up your volume just a little bit. You sound great, but it's a little soft. And then please continue, Hardtop, about the WARR. Here we go. Founded and operated by Hilto Meridoc. This is one of those things. I just want to say a disclaimer here before somebody angrily comments on YouTube on our Railroad series. The Railroad series is an appetizer. It's by no means an exhaustive documentary on the entirety of what's happening railroad wise in Second Life. We missed a lot of smaller private entities, and this is not this is not the book that Hardtop and I have been commissioned to write about the railroad, and we already received an advance of should I say publicly, Hardtop, $2 million Linden? No, it's a six-figure.
Wonder where all that money went to.
Oh, we'll talk about it off the air.
Okay.
So the WARR was an effort that started when and where?
I believe that started New Mogen, and that was heading out west towards the ocean.
Yeah, it's on the Hrdtop75 mainland, so it started from near I call it the Hobo Hub, whatever that actual region is called, and kind of went off towards the west and eventually west-north of the Hrdtop75 mainland or atoll. So.
And that was around the same time when the SLRR was expanding already?
It was started in 2010. So it was it was several years after it basically was started. Okay. It actually linked up eventually with thank you there, Ven. The Coletta is the Hobo Hub. It started near Coletta, like the next couple of regions over, but it was it was visible from there, and then it connected eventually to the Second Life Railway. Just I think one region north of Coletta.
What was really cool when Zen and I first spoke, and I think I asked you this, it's in the piece, the first thing you did when you came into SL, you searched for railway. Zen, is that right? And what did you find when you searched for it? Did you find any other efforts similar to what you're doing, a small privately held narrow gauge, or I guess it's called normal gauge, or anything like that?
Well, I could. It's called standard gauge, if I remember correctly.
Oh, standard, yeah.
Or Stevenson's gauge. We could go the British way. Sadly, I never found another narrow gauge, but I found the Great Second Life Railway and loved it, and just was amazed by it. And then I found the Second Life Railroad, and last the Caledonia, and I spent my first few months just exploring those regions.
I actually found listed on the destinations guide the Lionheart Railroad. I don't know what that is, and that's when we already completed the series and was like, oh no, we forgot so many things. Does anybody else in the audience or on stage know of any other smaller railroads that are on the mainland or on private sims? Please put it in the chat. And I want to read from the chat here real quick, because we were talking about what could make the mainland experience better. I mean, this goes beyond railroading, but a lot of people said ban lines, take away ban lines, and then other people are saying, no, I love my ban lines around my home. And I think that discussion is as old as time, or as old as Second Life is. Yeah.
probably way beyond where the amount of influence that railways have in Linden Lab policy. I do notice, by the way, I think it's all anecdotal and possibly not correct, but there was claims that after the Western Atoll Railway was closed, that, finger quotes, many people abandoned their homes, unquote, along that right-of-way because, oh no, the trains are gone. But then again, I've heard plenty of people that claim that, oh, the railway's gone, I hated it. So, but there were claims that many people abandoned their land, but I can't quite verify the accuracy of that.
Did you make your own trains too, Athos?
Well, certainly there've been 2 or 3. They were all from about 2004 for the Great Second Life Railway. I've dabbled a bit in making railway equipment for the SLRR when I was involved in lab construction for it, but nothing very fancy. A couple of locomotives and mostly stationary stuff to give the impression that we were working. It was usually work equipment they would put near the end of where we were working on the track. So.
In the chat, I just want to read this real quick. Kenny Luckless says, does Second Norway not have a train line? That's a good question. And Ki Nyan Gao, I'm sorry to mispronounce your name. We've been in email contact, just posted a Second Life Wiki list of railways that are present, and some of them are historical in nature, in the sense that they're no more on the Second Life Wiki. Kito Flora says the Blake Sea has the Nakiska Railroad. Hardtop, what is the Nakiska Railroad? Can you say that name again? The ONSR, and what's the history of the ONSR? I mean, we did justice to it a little bit in the series. We went through the Snowland region, but what's the significance of the ONSR in the greater context of the Second Life Railroad?
Well, that was actually started off by Veronica Quackenbush. I actually seen her around earlier. She started off.
Is she still around? Is she here?
Yeah, I seen her earlier, and I seen her in the Virtual Railway Consortium chat the other day as well. She started off with the 3 sims down there, and eventually the labs helped out, taking it all the way up to the Info Hub.
Mm-hmm. But it's only on the Snowland region, and it doesn't go beyond that, right?
That's all. It's only in the snow region. Veronica
is on OST every day, says Keto Flora in the chat. I want to read from the YouTube chat a little bit here. UK Big Stevio says, I live on Mainland. I would like to see the ground texture on nice green grass, not a mixed texture. That way I can save prims. Scott Volvo says, the railroad is fantastic in Second Life. I've been on all of them. I stop at all kinds of places, explore around, and then get back on the railway, move down to the next spot, and get out. Ginger says, I request to be the Archduke Ginger of Second Life. Well, I don't know how that that's going to pan out. And lots of love for Zen's railway. What are your next plans in terms of since the expansion then is a question of money or the lack thereof? What are your plans for the railway, or not even plans? I mean, what is sort of the day-to-day procedure for you to engage visitors or people who live near you? I know you're building all these railways, but what's sort of your day look like as a railroad manager in Second Life?
Well, I would just like to backtrack because I said about narrow gauge railways. There is 2 that my railway is partnered with. Like a twinned with.
Yeah.
There's the Valkyrie Light Transportation Railroad, what is run by my friend Dizzy Sternberg, her sister Janet, and her partner Nightshade. And then there's one I helped with called Dreamshare, and they're all fabulous railways, very much worth checking out. And my day-to-day is, every day I log in, I fly up and down the railway, I do ride the trains each day, and make sure they're all running smoothly. And then, if they're not, Linden Labs usually gets a live chat message from me. The plans mostly
But
are...
what could the issues be? What would the issues be that you have and that Linden Lab would have to help you with? Let's go into. I mean, this may be something that a lot of people know who are in the nitty gritty here. But I'm sure we have viewers, and including myself, who I wouldn't know what would be actual issues that would need to be solved and could be solved by the Linden Department of Public Works.
Well, this is more just after a rolling restart every so often, the sim will be underperforming to my quite high standards, and trains will run slowly through there. So I just ask them to restart, and usually it fixes it. It's more the issue I'm running into more and more nowadays is the fact that people are moving into the sims around the railway. More people means a little more, performance issues. CGO, that buildable robot breedable place, that has
right.
it's just expanded. It's half the sim now, and I've noticed a dip in performance. But the future plans are...
They're breeding. These robots, they are breeding nonstop. I mean, guys, let me just say, if you haven't watched this series, please don't do it now. Do it afterwards. But when Zen gave me the tour and I was looking out the window, I saw neat little houses. I saw wonderful, aesthetically shaped lawns and such. And then I saw a big box store, and it was the breedable robots. And it does not surprise me the least bit that they're expanding.
They got massive. They're really nice people, thankfully. If you want to know about breedables, in 2017 we expanded into Gagori. I can't ever pronounce that sim now. The sim what Little Coverston is in. And there was a woman there who had been in there for a while. Lovely. I got on well with her, but she had this thing for breedable chickens, and they were labeled self-replicating chickens. So they were in a skybox, and she had about 1,000 of these chickens, and the trains would just grind to a halt in that sim. She ended up leaving, and the trains run so much better.
You know, Hrdtop, that reminds me, can we talk about, and I don't know, I mean, we're here at the Second Life birthday party, so I think it's on every birthday party, the funnest part is to reminisce and talk about things that were a hassle or annoying in the olden days, but now that they're gone, they may not be a hassle anymore. Let's talk about those cars that Anne O'Toole makes. Hrdtop, you're my new historian friend, so every time I have a historical question, I throw it to you. Who is Anne O'Toole?
I'm going to let Patch run with that one.
Yeah, Patch.
I'm steering clear of that one.
When I came into SL in 2007, I listened to Prokofy's podcast, and it was all about Anne O'Toole and her self-driving cars and what a nuisance that was. Patch, can you enlighten us on self-driving cars and Anne O'Toole?
Well, I mean, I don't have anything in particular to say about Anne, but the self-driving, vehicles and such that were running around on the mainland at the time, were pretty resource intensive, right? And due to various factors with parcel settings and things that were permitted, and Second Life being as open of a platform as it is, they could cause some issues from time to time.
I
believe they were generally getting stuck in some places as well, and they just couldn't get returned. The auto return on them just wouldn't go back as well.
Would they drive on the actual roads, or did they also just go off the roads?
I think they ran off waypoints.
Generally they ran from waypoint to waypoint, and typically on the road. But some of them also went in the water. And the vehicles themselves, the resers, I recall, weren't specific on what they might res. So you might see a boat going down the road, or a car in the water.
Yeah,
Or a tank.
a bus
The,
going
the
down
better
road.
one would convert. I remember seeing some of them would come to the end of the road and it would turn into a boat, or it would grow pontoons and float into the water. There were more. The number of complaints is hard to use as a judge because some people will complain a lot, but we got more reports of them stuck in people's property or just being abusive than I ever saw people riding them. So there's that.
I guess she started it as a well-meaning public service, and and some people were just making her out to be the bad person here. I don't know. I'm not judging. In the YouTube chat, a lot of interesting comments here. Juliet Darkfall says Dreamshire has a narrow gauge line.
That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And if anybody has a slur or a slur, put it in the chat, or give me a landmark, please. I'm going to follow up on this. Terry Lynn says, have you been on the Scotland SLRR owned by Magnus Brody? Ah, Scotland SL. And Peter is confirming there is a small fun railway in second Norway. Luca in the chat here just said it's scrolling by very quickly. Heterocera is such a wonderfully complex continent. Here it is. It looks small on the map, but there are way more roads and stuff there than the size suggests. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And it's, again, I mean, I asked this earlier, but does anybody do tours with carriages where people sit in there and do outings? What's happening in my hometown of Munich, they take very old streetcars from the 20s and 30s, and they have them sort of as special streetcars. You can buy a ticket, and then it goes on a Sunday on a special line that is used during rush hour by a modern streetcar. But then they take that out for that day, and you can actually go around the entire town in this historic streetcar. I wonder if somebody does that in Second Life. I think that will be pretty cool.
Well, the Great Second Life Railway between Purple and Crimson has a lot of. Well, they're historic in the sense of they're old. Has a lot of fairly old streetcars. Sadly, tend to be kind of blocky looking. We shall call it.
Yeah, but that's hip again, Athos. That's coming back. People are tired of bento and mesh and organic curves. They want blocks. No?
Well, they're certainly they're a step above a plywood cube, but they are very. But yes, you can see a fairly ancient rolling stock on the Great Second Life Railway. So, and a fair number of there's a trolley car that on the Great Second Life Railway is normally reddish that I made. I've seen someone has been distributing, and that's fine. It's open to distribute a green version, which runs around the SLRR quite a lot. It's kind of hideous because they just put green color all over all the surfaces so that everything except for the windows is green.
I believe it can fly between Bay City as well.
Sorry, say that again, Hardtop?
I believe it also flies between Bay City as well.
What is one of the reasons this series was greenlit is of course that Linden Lab has a vested interest in attracting railroad enthusiasts or model train enthusiasts to come into SL and experience this awesomeness. Now, let's be critical here. What appeals to me, what I said earlier, is sort of the unfinished, or what Hrdtop said in the series, the good, the bad, and the different. This is something that might be off-putting to someone who wants a very, very polished experience. But what do you guys think? And let's make the rounds. Let's start with Patch. I mean, what do you think that there is a chance that a lot of model train and railroad enthusiasts could could get into SL. People, I'm talking about specifically people who would otherwise not be interested in SL, who don't even know that it exists. I mean, I know this is hard to believe, but I bump into people almost on a daily basis when I walk with the dog that have no idea that something like Second Life exists. And when I tell them about it, so theoretically they go like, "What? Really?" But yeah, Patch, do you think that I mean, you're a railroad enthusiast too? Is this something where people would say like, "Oh yeah, this is very cool," or would they say, "No, I want the tactile experience, the tactile experience, the tactile experience"?
I don't know. I think right now is actually a really interesting time to ask that question because of everything that's going on, in the world with the pandemic, right? I'm a member of various clubs, even from like the NMRA on down, and I've been sitting back watching them try to deal with and cope with how to have their meet and greets and things of that nature where they no longer can do them in real life, and they're coming up with all of these unique ways to try and do things virtually, whether that's via Zoom conferences or other methods of meetings and such, and I do think that it could potentially find a footing, or Second Life could find a footing in that space because, like was mentioned earlier, when I first came into Second Life, I actually came looking for trains too. I mean, it wasn't like my very first thing, but out of my exploration and stuff like that, it was certainly probably the third thing I think I went looking for to see if it existed when I first came in. And I feel like there's got to be other people out there too, like me in that sense. And when I think about what's going on today, that there very much could be a purpose and a place that Second Life could get into the community more, and the various model railroad organizations, or even just train spotters and enthusiasts and stuff could really benefit from being able to come in and virtually experience some of what we have with our railways in Second Life.
I couldn't agree more. At the same time, I can already hear this whole thing about no, I need to touch things, and that's something that I hear a lot, which is the single most I don't know if it's indicting, but it's a limitation that for some people is the deal breaker, right? And you tell them, hey, you can put your train down here, or you can put some, you can make your train and you can ride those rails. I think we're still in this world where then people say, well, I can't touch it, so it's not for me. Certainly interesting. It breaks along those lines, I think. People here in the chat, Venice says Prims for the win, and Camille says I've never heard of anybody being tired of bento and mesh. Well, I'm just saying, fashion, it goes in cycles. Kenny Lex Luckless says blocky IKEA trains. I'm not sure if those trains were made by IKEA. Could be. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Hrdtop75 Deluxe, Zen-Swords Galway, Patch Linden, and Athos Murphy, formerly known as Michael Linden, about the Second Life Railway and trains and railroading in SL. We just released a 5-part series. Please do comment on YouTube. Here's the playlist one more time. I'm putting it in the local chat. And if you have slurls or other contextual information, it would be fabulous if you could put it into the YouTube comments so we can collect them there. Scott Volvo in the YouTube chat says, Michael Linden, I found 3 of his hidden treasure chests underwater. I'm also sub and scuba diver, and ask him when he's putting his hat in one of his hidden underwater chests so we can get it. Now, Athos, what is Scott Volvo talking about underwater chests?
Well, there are all sorts of hidden Easter eggs all over Second Life. They might be part of one of the the game things that has been set up over the years. There's a lot of odds and ends hidden away by myself and by the moles on my behalf, as it were, when I was in charge of that lot of people.
That's some of those mole areas along the railway, right, Hrdtop? We were going by that, and there's one little clip in the series, but I think I cut that part. What was that? What we were going by, and you said, or I said, let's get out and explore that. What was that? That was a sub or an entryway into some underground thing somewhere.
Oh god. Oh,
What
jeez.
was that?
I can't remember off the top of my head. We've been up
It-
and down the
it
railway
was-
so many times, and you do like to chat. I can't remember.
Do you still go up and down the railway, Hrdtop?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, every now and again. Yeah.
And what is the most exciting thing that you see when you go up and down? Is it for me, it was this art installation. I'm going to call it art installation of an automated newbie avatar soccer playing thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's on the eastern part of the atoll. Yeah, down near Barga.
I've seen a lot of stuff, but this is probably the coolest. It's basically laying down what is that avatar called? That noob avatar. Is there a name for that noob avatar in the white shirt that is kind of a little bit slumped over? Anybody know? Please
sure
put
the
it in the
labs have
chat.
a proper name for it.
The one that's not Ruth.
Exactly. It's not Ruth. It's a male avatar with a shirt and jeans, and he's kind of always sort of not paying attention or sleeping. It's not Ruth. People put boy next door. Holoclux says or newbie Jim. Yeah, and there are these like all these noobs are lying in the soccer field, and the ball is being kicked back and forth, and these noobs are basically like a foosball contraption that gets bounced. They get bounced around by this automated ball, and there's a clock ticking, and that's by the railroad, and it's just awesome when you go by there and you see this kind of stuff.
I think a lot of the things I like to do is check out all the new builds that people are doing. That's something that I enjoy, something that's always changing. And every now and again, as you'll see from that old video of where a YouTube creator, he walked the whole railway, you can see so many things that have changed since. It's amazing.
Right. Actually, let's give him proper credit, what his name is. But Hrdtop, you're saying it. I mean, I'm saying this from my suburban privileged, I moved into the suburbs as soon as I could afford it. So I don't know what's going on in the mainland where all the riffraff is hanging out. Are you saying that people actually still build? That people are actually engaged on the mainland? And all I hear from my suburban white picket fenced island is that everything, nobody's doing anything.
No, there's always something happening along the railways and on the mainland as well. There's always something happening.
Patch, this goes back to, this is something that fascinates me. As you're building so many new continents, and we all know that, especially during the lockdown of the period now, Second Life is, I would say, exploding. Bloomberg was saying that the increase in user activity as compared to last year was 60%. You guys are bringing on continent after continent after continent. Is that I don't know, what is there any thinking or policy? I mean, I danced around this question earlier too. Is the mainland the brother or the child that nobody pays attention to and says, "Hey, here I am. I'm still here"?
No, not at all. We're always out there working on the mainland. It's just so big. It's hard to do something impactful with it in short order, right? And or small scale. You know, the team is always doing something somewhere on the mainland, and the vastness, I think, actually kind of hurts the optics there a bit. it's sort of like if we were to go and start up one of these new railway projects, like rehabilitating the War. It's going to take some time, and is it going to be that noticeable in the grand scale of everything else that's there with the SLRR? Maybe not as much until we start to touch the larger networks of railways out there. Sure, it's going to be known to us as enthusiasts and stuff that we've done something new. But is it going to impact or change the mainland overnight across the board? No.
Oh, I totally get your point. I was also, I guess, I should have been more specific about sort of not revitalizing, but generating interest. By the way, here's somebody in the chat here. Zoran Manray says, "Do people still build on the mainland?" Yes, we do.
Oh yeah.
Check out Hiraya Village and the region around Despres. Zoran, please IM me in world. I'm taking down your name, and maybe along the Maiden SL series. I should do a whole mainland series. That's kind of the question, Patch. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. Also, this is really a resource game as well. I mean, how can you make the most impact, and where can you make it? I'm just wondering, as an outsider. I mean, it's kind of tongue in cheek that I live in the suburbs, but I kind of do live in the suburbs. Maybe I should move to the mainland and walk around every day and just see, get a better feel for it, I guess.
Yeah, when I find myself with some free time, I pick and choose between wandering about the mainland or Belisaria. And it's always good to visit, the regions themselves and see what's going on. And I collect ideas along the way. When I see areas, that I will get some inspiration and say, what would look really good here, or what might work here and stuff. And I document these things, and I kind of jot down, I was in these regions in this area of the mainland, and I feel like this might be something that we can do with it someday. And I keep kind of a rolling log of that stuff. It's pretty extensive.
That's the way to do it, Patch. Yeah. Somebody here in the chat. Oh yeah, Claire. She's putting it right there. Nice mainland builds attracts neighbors who also want to do nice builds, and then you get collaborations going, which is when it gets the most cool. Sarah Beth says, if you're serious about improving mainland, eliminate the no warning force TP orbs. David N in the YouTube chat says, who asked about what's going on the mainland? Just walk around a bit. Well, David, that was me. I do walk around, but I do need to walk around more. Yeah, but the reason for us getting together here on this program is to find out what's going on and to be energized with stories about what's going on. David continues to say, "I've been on the mainland for 4 years. You need to fix this narrative now. The myth that nothing happens on the mainland is a myth." David, nobody is saying that, actually. I don't think that I was saying that. I'm actually, if you watch the Railroad series, I think you'll get a sense that a lot is going on. I just want to open the floor here, or the microphone, as it were, to talk about stories, what is going on, so we look at the mainland as something that is worth visiting and engaging. And the time I spent with Hrdtop on this series was wonderful. And like I said in the outset of this program, it re-energized me about what brought me into Second Life in the first place and what made me stay. We have a few minutes left in the program. I know Athos has to go. Athos, now that you're no longer a Linden, do you still, how is your relationship with Second Life, if anything? Did we have to drag you from somewhere else into here, or are you now sort of as a private citizen, private resident, running around and doing things?
Oh, I'm still, Second Life is still the primary virtual world, though I have been looking at Stormfront, which is a kind of like Minecraft on steroids thing for vehicles. But Second Life, I'm in Second Life about every week or so. We've been doing a lot of upgrading on the trackway and such for the Great Second Life Railway, putting down actual rails instead of pictures of rails, and trying to wrangle with things. A lot of the Great Second Life Railway is a very slow project. So if you have a private railway on the mainland, especially in the old color-named regions, patience. It takes years to get a track. You get people to promise you that if you ever leave Second Life, you'll sell me your property. And then you wait until that person dies of old age or whatever. So it takes quite a while. But yes, I'm in Second Life fairly often, and I roll around to the airfields and the railways, and I drive around on the SLRR from time to time to see how the trains are running. And I buy new railway equipment and drive it around to see what the latest thing is on that. What I'm hoping to see, before we get too late here, I'm hoping that will be more development of car ferries. While I was still with the lab, there are 2 or 3 that I know of, and there's probably more by now, that were built. There's a couple built by the moles, and I've seen a couple others where you could, in theory, drive a train onto a ship.
You know, this is exactly what we were talking about when we explored it with Hrdtop, and it was like, okay, no, how can we get over here? Well, with a ferry, we could. That's what needs to happen.
Well, it's a combination of 2 things. One is you need terminals, like places where the rail comes to the water. And I believe by now that people have come up with solutions, but I don't know that it's widely propagated for where you can drive a vehicle onto another vehicle and then have it stick to the bigger vehicle so that then the bigger vehicle drives around and an arbitrary other vehicle will be glued to its deck so that it doesn't just slide off. It's the whole problem with if you don't sit in a vehicle in Second Life and it moves, you tend to fall off. So that sort of thing would be nice to see. So, and things like there are other rail systems that the lab runs, like the Bay City Trolley is a rail system. Mm-hmm. And there's I'm not sure the Nova Albion Trolley is running currently. It was always kind of.
Oh, it is. There's like a little one that goes back and forth. Yeah,
well, that's probably I suspect that is the oldest operating vehicle object in Second Life. The scripts have been replaced a couple times, I think, but that little trolley that has some advertisements on the side that goes down to door, that's probably the oldest, might be the oldest vehicle that Linden Lab. There might be a balloon tour somewhere that's older. Don't know.
I'm getting a ping from my producer. We have to wrap it because Strawberry, I can say her name. Strawberry is producing and running camera, and she is working around the clock. Thank you so much, Strawberry, for all your hard work. And happy birthday, Second Life. And thank you, Hrdtop. Thank you, Zen. Thank you, Patch. Thank you, Athos. Please watch the series, and please do contact me if you want to. If you have a project for the Made in SL series. The Made in SL series is, of course, not a big team. It's actually a very small team. It's just me and then a few others that help out. Namely, Marianne McCann has to get a huge shout out. Marianne McCann for this series and for all the other series that we're doing on the Made in SL, under the Made in SL brand, so to speak. Marianne builds set after set after set. So big shout out. She also makes all the logos. Happy birthday, Second Life, and I think that's a wrap. I don't know who's coming next, but my name is Draxtor Despres, and you know where to find me. In a suburb, behind a white picket fence. That's it. Draxtor out.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you very much. I'm going to find my clap. Nice to see you all, but I'm called to other affairs. Goodbye.
You're called to other.
I actually an event I'm in much demand. I have an event at 1:00. In fact, I see a Zoom screen filling up with pictures of people. So gotta go.
Thank you so much, Athos. Bye, and hope to see you again.
Take care.
Don't get Zoom fatigue.
Yes, indeed.
Hrdtop, Awesome that you were able to be here despite the time difference.
That's all right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Right.
Zen and Patch, thank you as
Yeah.
well.
Let me get out of
Garnet
mod.
said something here in the chat. Oh, people can't hear us in well, can they?
Don't know. Here, I'm going to.
I'm gonna cut the Discord and I'll switch to inworld.
Yep, stream cut when you ended the show, Drax.
Okay. Thanks, y'all. I've got to run. Max, we're gonna be switching over to the our radio Discord.
Yep. And I will see
I gotta relog, reboot, reset everything. So I'll see you there.
See you later. And thank you all.
Probably got all the sounds turned off in Second Life. Yeah, not a problem. Well, I'm going to take off and get some sleep. Oh, good. Okay. Just I am. Him. Oh, there you go. I just messaged him. Alright. Have fun, and thanks for coming down and doing the railway with us. That was great. Yeah, that's cool. You know what? I wish I knew how to do that newbie wave now. I'll wave to everyone and go goodbye. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there it is, common. All right. I'm gonna go. Catch us later. Oh, looks like I'm gonna crash.